The Magicians Podcast is brought to you in proud association with the Magic Circle, Alakazam Magic, and Gigio.
This week you're getting two for the price of one. Derren's writers, Sharkey and Long, are on the Magicians Podcast.
Come on. Yo, it's my life, my time, my rights, my rhymes, my grind, my struggle, hustle, sweat in my blood too. I'm ready to smell fear, I smell a lot. My competitors fled scared, cause they smelled I was hot. I want it all, excess, the sex, much success, stress us. I want it all, no less, so come on.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Magicians Podcast. I am Richard Young, and thank you very much for joining me here this week for a special double bill of 2 episodes. This week represents the halfway point of Season 3, so I'm celebrating by offering you not 1 but 2 episodes to enjoy. This episode, episode 59, is with Derren's co-writers Sharkey and Long, and also on the feed right now is episode 60. It's with Bruce Smith, who has worked for Marvel's Magic since day one. He's got some amazing stories of all the incredible magicians which have gone through that place over the years. Do not miss it. It's episode 60. It's available for you right now. I sincerely hope you enjoy the 2 episodes which go up on the feed today. They take us to the halfway point of Season 3, so we will be taking a little break from the series from today for a few weeks. The reason? Well, I will be completely honest with you. There are some availability issues. I've got some great guests lined up, but I'm having a little bit of difficulty meeting them at the moment. The reason is they're busy. Some of them are not in the country, and also I've got a few things going on as well. I'm working on a few projects which are taking up a lot of my time, and so I don't want the quality of what we're doing here to go down. So we're just going to take a break for a few weeks while I sort of get back ahead of the game and record some new episodes. And we'll be back very soon. When will we be back? Well, you will find out on our social media pages. You should be connected with us on Twitter. We are at Magician Podcast, or on Facebook. You can give our page a like by going to facebook.com/Magicians Podcast. One of the reasons I'm busy for the next few weeks is because the Champions of Magic show is going back on tour. It starts tomorrow, the 26th of March, and we're doing a show every day in a different city every day until the 10th of April. We're covering 15 different cities in the UK. If you're in Tunbridge Wells, Buxton, Preston, Lancaster, London, Lincoln, Wellingborough, Salford, Wickham, Poole, Billingham, Hereford, Chelmsford, Guildford or Lowestoft, or anywhere near any of those cities, you can come out and see our show. It's a great show. It's got a bit of everything in it. We've got Faye Presto doing her incredible close-up magic, Edward Hilsom doing his bird act, Alex McAleer doing the mind reading, and Young and Strange, of course, doing the illusions too. I hope you'll consider coming out. It would be great to meet a few podcast listeners. I hope to see you at one of those dates. So, this episode is with Sharkey and Long. They are Derren's co-writers, and before this episode was recorded, they had a little bet with Morgan and West that they would try and mention as many herbs as possible in this week's episode under the radar. Well, it didn't go under the radar. I spotted it, and I found out what was going on, and I've done what any good broadcast journalist will do. I've edited them all out. So I hope that means they lost the bet and Morgan and West are at least 10 or 20 quid up. I met them at the Magic Circle headquarters. In fact, we recorded this interview on the stage in the theatre, but it was empty. I sincerely hope you enjoy this one. Here are Derren's co-writers, Sharkey and Long. So this is the second episode ever where I'm sat here with a double act, because we don't include me and Strange because we barely qualify. Sharkey and Long, here they are.
Hello.
Hello.
This is the first time I've ever sat doing an interview where the guests are sat drinking beer. And we're here on the Magic Circle stage. Fortunately, this time it's empty. There's no one here. Although Roy Marsh is very kindly wandering around doing a few little jobs and bits and pieces.
He just needs to put his clothes back on. That's the only problem.
So, guys, we've got to give a bit of background on you guys first, I think, because although we've all seen your amazing work with Derren and all the other stuff you've done recently, we don't really know you. And how did you meet, etc.? Who wants to start? This is for you to decide. You're a double act. So.
Well, I think we're Magic's best kept secrets.
Well, we should make it clear we're not a performing double act, so we don't have any gags that we kind of fall back on or anything like that. We just sort of spend too much time together.
Right.
But if that's what constitutes a double act.
Worrying and growing facial hair for other people. Yeah.
But we met because we both responded to the same newspaper advertisement in the Staines Informer, I believe it was.
It was indeed.
And my mum brought it to me. I was like, "Here you go, look, Stephen. There's a job for you." And at the time, I can't remember how old I was. Probably 2011, something like that. And
you were 11.
I was 11, yeah, and you were 39.
Yeah,
sounds about right. Anyway, so the job was come and sell magic tricks at Thorpe Park. And people that know Thorpe Park don't necessarily know this, but there used to be, in the centre of the dome area, a magic bar. It was like a 4-sided bar covered in baize with some cabinets with Svengali decks and stuff in.
Surrounded by hungry gypsies wanting you to show them magic tricks was pretty much it, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was it. And we met. And that was
selling Sven decks.
So you were both employed selling Sven decks, or you were doing alternate shifts or something?
Exactly at the same time. Technically, I was Stephen's boss, and technically I
Is that
still
really
am.
true? I don't have any memory of you being my boss.
No, I was the one with the keys. That was the thing. I was the one with the keys, and then
He's definitely the boss. He's got the keys.
Yeah, no. We were selling Sven decks and dynamic coins, and I even remember the rhyme I used to have while selling dynamic coins.
Yeah, go on, it's brilliant.
Go on.
Give him a shake, give him a blow, give him a twist, and the coins they go.
What about if you had to reproduce them?
Give him a shake, give him a smack, give him a twist, and the coins they're back.
No wonder he sold so many.
Yeah, impossible, improbable, and
highly unlikely.
Yep, that was it. So we did that for a bit, but weirdly, while we were there, we both realised that we knew Derren independently of each other. And this is before we started working with him and stuff like that.
That was quite funny because I can't remember which one of us dropped it in first.
I think it was you.
But it's
because you're a massive name dropper.
Probably it was probably me.
Yeah.
But if you knew us, you would probably imagine that we knew each other through Derren. But actually, the reverse is true. We met Derren independently and then met each other, and then started hanging out as a three, which is how it kind of all came about in a roundabout way. But yeah, I probably dropped it in first. I was like, oh yeah, actually, I know Derren a little bit.
I think it was after I'd said I'd been at Liz Taylor's house for breakfast, counting over.
This is because he wrote the foreword for your book, didn't he? So that came after this or before?
That came after this. Yeah, no, I was still very shit at that point.
Right.
And
so how did you meet Derren? First time.
Me. So I met him because I used to. It makes it sound like a habit. I didn't used to email him, but I did email him a bit.
Right. Sending him photos.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Right. Yeah. Back before he was massively the huge deal that he is now. When he was just kind of a name in the magic world, I contacted him, not expecting anything of it, but I was just kind of starting out in magic, and I emailed him, and I got a reply. Because I guess he didn't get loads of messages back then, so he would have time to reply. These days, there's no way you could do that. So I was very fortunate. But he got back in touch, and we had a little bit of email back and forth about some kind of advice he had for magicians starting out and what have you. And then it turned out he was doing a show at my uni. I went to Aberystwyth Uni, and he came there on the tour. And I sent him another email saying I'd love to meet up if that's okay. And he said yes. And we met up backstage, and we got on very well. And then. I didn't think anything more was going to come of it, but it was about that time that Sharkey and I discovered our independent friendship of Derren, and then that kind of gave us license to hang out as a three a little bit, and then that's kind of how we all.
So just for clarity, what sort of time is this? What tour was that? So we get an idea of time scale.
What tour was it?
Because there's 7 been now.
Oh right, well it was the very first one.
Oh, so it was literally just Derren Brown live.
Derren Brown live,
right at the beginning. I mean, yeah. I obviously met him being a punter on the seance.
I heard you applied to be a part of it, right? That was what happened.
What, the seance?
Yeah.
Oh no. So where I met Derren, this is a very odd, brilliant sliding doors moment in my life. So I was 23 years old. I was staying in halls of residence at uni, and I remember getting a knock on the door from the guy that lived next to me. And I remember exactly what I was doing at this point. I was watching Hellraiser 2 on my shitty VHS player, eating Cocoa Pops with chocolate milk poured on, because hey, I was at uni and it was fine and cool, and I could be my own man. So the height of my decadence was Cocoa Pops with chocolate milk on. And he said to me, hey, they're canvassing for the new Derren Brown show. And he'd only just done Russian roulette at this point. And I was very aware of it. And he said, hey, they're doing the canvassing for the new Derren Brown show up in the big main hall. Will you come with me? And I said, no. wearing my pajamas and chilling out. And I said, no, it's just going to be a bunch of TV producers. He's not going to be there. There's no point. And this guy, his name was Richard, living next to me, said, look, I want to go, but I'm not going to go if you don't come. And so I said, all right, fucking hell, as a favour to you. So I got dressed, went up to the hall and was expecting nothing. And then Derren walks out with a little mic on and that. I thought, this is kind of interesting. And he took a bunch of people from the audience, you got to volunteer through some typical, Derren Brown suggestibility tests at the time. And I decided to take part. And I was much against my better judgment, chosen to be on the seance. And knew nothing about magic at that time. I was 23 years old, so I was very late to the party when I started looking at magic as a viable thing. And the only thing so knew nothing about magic at all, and was so fried by being a part of the seance to the core of my being that I decided I'm going to learn exactly how to do what he does. And it kind of felt lucky because he's a lovely bloke. And he took us all out for a meal a month or so later. And in that time, I had read loads of books on magic, loads of books on weird Victorian hypnosis and stuff like that. And I sat next to him at this meal he took us all out for. And I said to him, look, I know you're secretive people, but I've read this, and this. I'd like to ask you some questions. And even his reaction was, holy shit, you're reading stuff that even I don't know about, which was weird, like Victorian hypnosis about the Nancy School and stuff like that, and the practical applications of animal magnetism. Like, I'd gone back to the source, and he was cool enough to go, look, and he got a little record card out of his wallet, as most mentalists can do. He got a record card out of his wallet, wrote down a list of books, and then put his phone number at the bottom and said, look, once you've read those, give me a call and we'll go out for a massive whiskey. And so I read all those books, and we did, and then over the next 2-year period, we became friends, and then he noticed I was studying writing at the time at uni, and he'd read a couple of the things that I was writing and said to me, and this was Trick or Treat era. So my first credit on a Derren show was Trick or Treat Series 1 when I was still at uni, and my first series that I wrote with Derren and Andy was Trick or Treat Series 2. And Derren looks at some of the stuff I was writing and said, do you want a week's work experience on the show? Now, as a fledgling writer, of course I'm going to say yes, but a week's work experience has turned into 10 years.
Wow.
And whatever else has come from that. We've had some crazy adventures, and yeah.
Well, what was the first show you worked on?
Well, it's difficult, but the first show I worked on as an assistant stage manager was Something Wicked This Way Comes.
That's the live stuff, right?
Which
will make the differentiation between that and TV, I guess.
Yeah, which was the live stuff. And that was great because Derren needed... He had an ASM, assistant stage manager, that was dropping out of Something Wicked, because I joined it halfway through its run, and so what he needed was somebody with a background in both magic and theatre who would happily, carry props around, do scene changes and that kind of thing. And he knew me. I just finished a degree in theatre, and he said, do you want to... Somebody's dropping out. Something Wicked This Way Comes starts its West End run on this date. Can't remember the date. Do you want to do it? And the date that I needed to start was the day after my final exam at university. So I said yes. And it's in Aberystwyth, so it's like a 6-hour drive. And I packed all my stuff up that morning, and very early, and drove my life back down to my parents where I was living at the time. Got a train into London that night to work backstage on my first ever Derren live show.
You moved your life, you drove home, and then run away with the circus.
Yeah,
nice.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
So your relationship, as it develops with him, was he occasionally asking you suggestions for the live show, or were you just doing the job?
Well, the way it works is it's lovely. The touring family is such a love. It is kind of that. It's kind of a family, which sounds a bit sickening, but that's sort of what it is. And it's not that Derren will ever say, tell me what you thought of this. He may do occasionally, but what happens is, less so in the West End, but certainly on tour, is that you'll finish a show and you'll go back to the hotel and you'll go to the bar and you'll get drinks and sometimes food if you haven't eaten. And the one thing that you all have in common is the show. Maybe you have other stuff in common as well.
Yeah.
There are some nice people that you tour with, which is lovely. But you find yourself naturally talking about the show. And so what happens is you're all just kind of sat there together noting it, which is amazing. It's just this process of being on tour with this.
It becomes organic, doesn't it? You live in a pod or a bubble for 6 months throughout the show, and it just becomes this constant growing living animal. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's great. And and Derren's brilliant. And I've heard other people say this about him as well. But one of the reasons he's so excellent is because he has this ability to just take a note. Like he's so if you have a thought on it, he will listen and think about it and agree with you or not, but it will at least your concern or whatever your thought is, method wise or performance wise, it will at least be addressed. I should point out at this point, anybody listening, that's not unsolicited feedback from people at the stage door. that's if you happen to work with him and you happen to be doing these projects, then he's always very, very receptive.
Although he does take solicited feedback at the stage door, so if you write to Michael Vine first, it's absolutely fine.
Yeah,
I'm joking. Jesus Christ.
So how does the crossover happen? So you've been helping with the TV, you've been helping with the stage show, and at this point you're not working together, obviously, because you're working on individual.
Well, it weirdly,
how did it cross over?
It came about in a really strange way. So you'd already done. I'd come up with a couple of ideas here and there with Derren. So I was involved very early on with the initial chats for Trick or Treat, and that was it for a little bit. And then you went on tour with him, didn't you?
I joined the live stuff first as a
It's
stage
difficult
hand.
to put a time on, because you did the live stuff first, and then I came on to the live stuff, and then from there I moved on as pretty much part of the furniture on the TV stuff, and then you came back on the TV stuff a few years later. I remember, I think your first major on the TV stuff, was it Hero at 30,000 Feet?
I don't know. No, I actually
You did some stuff before that, didn't you? Yeah,
my memory of it is, well, I did a kind of a day or two here and there on various bits and pieces. I wasn't very comfortable with myself as a kind of a consultant or co-writer at that stage, because it's so daunting. I remember I got asked to do a day on, I think it was Trick or Treat, and it was with Derren and Andy, and we went out for lunch at Pizza Express or Magician's Choice, as I think the gag is, right, as it's known. And I was so intimidated. Like, I'd never been asked to come up with ideas with two people who I looked up to so much in the magic world before, and I was kind of just...
And they're both forces of nature, right? I mean, it is an intimidating yet quite amazing thing.
Yeah.
Especially when you first start working with them. I mean, it's your eyes are wide, and it's like, shit, I don't know what I'm talking about. You get imposter syndrome massively roasted, don't you?
And the way they play off each other is just, it is like they're reading each other's minds. They tee each other up for gags and stuff, and the other will come in and get the laugh. And it's incredible. So it was enormously intimidating, and I don't think I impressed particularly then. And so I just kind of stayed working as a stagehand on the stage stuff. But then, I think Hero at 30,000 Feet went out, which Sharkey had... was that the first one you co-wrote with Derren?
That was... So Andy was slowly... After I started... So I did... God, what was my... So I did Trick or Treat Series 2, which was me, Derren and Andy, and the first episode that was just me and Derren on that...
The events.
No, so this was Trick or Treat. Yeah,
right.
This was Trick or Treat Series 2. The first episode that was just me and Derren was the kitten episode, the Preston Bar.
Yeah.
I remember that being mine and Darren's first thing, just us. And then as Andy got more busy and pulled away from the TV stuff and moved more onto the stage stuff, my role became bigger. So I sort of saw through the events, which was obviously the lottery, Psychic Spy, sticking people to their sofa, and the other one that I can't remember.
The best one.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. Whatever that one was, it was mind blowing. Then the events, and then after the events, Andy pulled away a little bit because his film career was kicking off. I think he got like Kick-Ass 2 at that point and stuff. And then so Derren and I started. It was just us two.
Yeah.
And I think the first thing we wrote together, because I'm not technically a magician per se. I'm a I come from a writing background, and I find myself. I peg myself as a writer who's lucky enough to be working in the world of magic, because I view magic as writing. That's what it is, and there's real kind of parallels to that. So, and then I can't remember if you came on board on Hero 30.
I didn't do anything.
Or you came on board after that, and we were starting to play with the form a bit more, because the Derren shows now more than they were. They're not magic shows now. We write them as films, and they're technically narratives, but using magical techniques to tell a story with a real person in the middle. And I think Hero at 30,000 Feet was the first model of that. And then we started building it on. You came on board just at that point, and they've become a hybrid of forms now of the Derren shows. I mean,
I remember. I think there was a period of a year or two where we didn't really see each other much, and I sent you and Derren an email after Hero at 30,000 Feet, just saying how much I loved it. And that was the time when Svengali was just in its infancy, and Sharks was kind enough to say, well, you know, like, we're starting to work up Svengali, you know, like Derren's next live show. I can't remember if it had the title at the time or not. And that was the one that Nyman pulled out of for various reasons. And so they were just kind of, it was Derren and Sharkey writing it together. Shark said, I reckon I can get you a couple of days like work on that if you know, if you've got some ideas. And I did. Like my strengths definitely lend themselves a bit more to theatre than they do TV. I just had a bunch of trick ideas that I thought Derren could do on stage, and I came in with a list. And that kind of couple of days that Shark said he thought he could get me turned into, ended up co-writing it.
Well, the reason I gave you a call was because we needed another body in the room, and we knew you were a creative pushover. So you know, it's just it just filled the remit. It made our jobs easier. But,
Andy Nyman's been on this podcast, and I asked him if he likes Svengali, and he said not really. How did that make you feel?
I listened to that. It's fine. I spoke to Andy about it. He was very open with me. Andy's a hugely open person anyway. And he was like, you know, look, I didn't, you know, because I think I asked him, and it's always a bit.
It's difficult.
It's always a bit difficult, isn't it? You know, because Andy had worked on every single one. And you know, and you can see his fingerprint on them when you watch the shows. If you know Andy, you know, and everybody that's a fan of Magic knows Andy. And I think you only have to watch some of the Derren stuff to be able to
see him in it.
Yeah, to be able to see him in it. So he's such a huge influence. And of course, like his back catalogue of work, having worked on them, was massive and was a point of reference for us. Of course, writing Svengali. So it's so difficult. But yeah, I asked him, and he, you know, he was very honest with me about it. So I had heard that before it went out. Before he mentioned it. On the podcast.
I think the difficulty with all that is, you know, I wouldn't take that as any form of criticism, because Andy's a genius, you know, and a complete force of nature that is incredible. But I think on that subject, it's so difficult to look at another Derren show once you've worked on one and not see it with different eyes, if you know what I mean. You know, they're incredible shows. They're the best magic shows in the world. They genuinely are. But I think when you've worked on one and you get the grammar, you get what it is, to then see another one that you've not had a hand in, you're always going to have that little moment where I might have done that different, or my thoughts on that would be different, or there'll be things coming out that you suddenly go, you clever bastards. And so you're looking at it from very different eyes, very close to the material and the brand. And I think that's maybe where that comes from, you know. And
You guys may know that I'm a broadcast journalist. I keep my ear to the ground. I heard a rumour that Svengali, there were panic stations in the early stages of that. People didn't feel it was going too well. Is that true?
That's true. I mean, in my experience, it's true at the beginning of any Derren live show. There are always tricks that go out on the first night that are a catastrophe and get cut.
And you sold out the whole run before you'd even written the show, so of course the pressure's there, you know.
There was one that an opening trick that was supposed to be very quick. I actually didn't know about this, but it took this opening routine took 20 minutes at the beginning of one of the live shows. He talks about this
on his Penguin lecture, doesn't he? Yeah, that story about getting people to sit down, but it took 20 minutes to get down.
And that's always what it's going to be. So I think there are panic stations at the beginning of every show, but you know, you've got an Olivier.
Yeah,
you know, so what? You know, it's like, bloody hell.
Yeah, but you're damn right. There are panic stations. You've written the show. You've never put it out in front of an audience before. Were we panicked? Like
you sold out 60 venues. You don't know what the show's called. You know, it's
absolutely.
So I've got to ask you. So what's he like to work with when he feels that things are not going very well? I think this is fascinating for magicians to know, because we all know, we hear lovely things about him.
Derren.
Derren.
All right, okay. So my take, like one of the things I think is truly amazing about Derren, not only is his just ability as a performer, which is second to none. I mean, he's going down in history as one of, if not the greatest magician / mystery performer / whatever you want to call it that's ever lived, and that's not because I've worked with him. He is incredible, and one of the things I think is amazing, he doesn't get wound up, he doesn't get nervous. Derren has a really interesting thing where if the pressure's on, rather than showing his nerves, he starts to giggle and get silly, and it almost becomes like play school. It's amazing.
Yep.
That rather than the pressure show, it goes exactly the opposite way, and it becomes like kids at school, and you find from that, and I think that's just naturally in him, you know, because he's very
immature.
Right. All he needs to do is fart, and everything's fine. But yeah, I think that's amazing. I've never seen him get wound up and difficult or anything like that. He goes exactly the opposite way. It's amazing.
Well, he doesn't get nervous. He doesn't. I've spoken to him because I'm curious about it as well. I said, do you get nervous? I think his answer is, I don't know if you asked him, he may say something different, but his answer is that like first night, if he's never done it before, he may get a little bit of nerves, but after that. I mean, he's like a machine. He's like a performance machine. He doesn't feel it.
But then, to be truth, he's got the entire stage management team around him that takes up all the nerves and gets sometimes worse.
Yeah. Rest assured, if you go to a first night of a Derren
there
show,
are nerves.
He'll be fine. He'll be fine. But backstage, like we will definitely be having very. Whispered conversations under our breath. Like, oh my god, did you? Is it working? Is it working? Oh my god, I can't believe he's got the hand.
Passing around the nappies. Yeah.
Let's talk about the thing that people have seen most recently, the Push show, which was on a few months ago. First thing I noticed when I have a look at the credits is that your names are above his on the writing credits, which I assume is his call.
That was his call. That was his call.
This was very much your concept. Could you want to explain how it all came to be?
The idea for the Push came about much like any other idea for a Derren Brown TV show, right? Which is that, in this case, we were all sat in a hotel room in Norwich, I think it was.
Yes.
And we had an idea. We had an idea for another show, which we thought we were making and that we wanted to do. Perhaps we shouldn't say what that was, just in case it ever gets made.
It will get made.
And it turned out for a bunch of reasons that we could not make that show. And so this was, I think Andrew O'Connor had said to us, will you go up and see him? And come up.
That was almost an Andrew O'Connor impression.
It was almost, yeah. Because it's very
O'Connor
difficult to say anything that Andrew O'Connor says without,
isn't it?
without doing the voice, isn't it? So he said, "Will you go up and see him and come up with a brand new idea for him?"
By the way, do you know his house was worth $13 million?
You're obsessed with money.
We've heard his podcast. It's that weird thing with Derren of course he's got such a back catalogue. I mean, what is it? He's been on TV for 14 years now, so you're guaranteed 99% of ideas that you come up with we've either done or we've touched on the themes in certain ways, or we just extrapolated something from it that you can't touch. So I think coming up with the idea for a Push was us sat in the room going, what about this? What about this? What about this? And I think it was the last 5 minutes of the day, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Was it Weekend at Bernie's that was mentioned?
Weekend at Bernie's came up
as a joke, as a total joke. Like, Jesus, let's do Weekend at Bernie's, and it came up as a joke. And all of us in the room, from this fevered kind of, what about this? Oh, Jesus, you're all wrong. And it was this really fevered pitch thing. It suddenly became all three of us going, ooh, and the eyebrows raised. But what can we make that? Okay, and we left it there, and we left, and that was it for a couple of weeks. And we all went sort of our separate ways, and we were thinking about stuff. And obviously, I see Stephen every day of my life. And we were talking about, well, what is it? And we started talking about compliance experiments and this and that, and together, sort of the way the writing process works at the moment is because of Derren's like tour schedule and stuff, and he's so massively busy. We'll usually come up with a core idea at the beginning of the year. Then Long and I will go off and develop it up a little bit, then go and see Derren and sort of develop it further together. But we've done a little bit of work in the interim. And then from there, it happens in increments. We see Derren a few times, and then towards the end, we all get together and make it. Derren gets full creative veto and whatever else, which is an incredible point. Which is,
yeah, we were talking about this. We were in the pub just before we came, and that one of the reasons we think that the shows are so good is that it's such a rare thing in
and it's Derren.
Yeah, it's such a rare thing in television that there will be a single creative vision. Just one person who has complete creative veto over everything, and if he doesn't want to do something, he doesn't do it, and if he does want to do something, he does. And that feels like such a key ingredient in terms of what makes the shows great. Because normally in TV, what you have is producers, the talent, the channel, the consultants, a bunch of people, all with input, all pulling in slightly different directions, and you never have that single creative drive that gives you the clarity of the final product, whatever it is that you end up with. And sort of with Derren, we're lucky. I mean, we can get frustrated sometimes because we'll work on a thing and then take it to him and pitch it to him, and he'll just tear it apart with a single sentence. Like not maliciously, but just because he sees a flaw in it for some reason or whatever it is.
But that's his strength.
But that's his strength, and that's why those shows are so great, because it's him at the helm, and he has final say, and it just feels like a really rare thing, and the channel as well. They respect him, which is also quite rare, because he has that body of work now and such a huge fan base that if he goes to see the channel and says, look, I really feel strongly about this, they'll listen to him, where they might not do with another performer. So
was the vision what we saw on the screen, the thing you guys came up with initially, or did it change a lot? This
is the interesting thing. So I think that there is always, when you write a Magic TV show, and it's not just the Derren stuff we've worked on. I guess you've seen what we've got our names.
Yeah, we'll get to Killer Magic. Don't worry.
Yeah, let's not. But no, I think out of it all, so we went off with the push, and once we realised, hey, there's this funny gag of Weekend at Bernie's, let's forget that for a moment, we want to explore compliance. So we did a lot of research on what compliance techniques are and what experiments are out there, and me and Stephen pretty much sat and for a week or so wrote it like a story, but using the techniques we knew were out there from the sort of world of psychology, if I can say that. And then from there, it was a case of, well, okay, now we've got that, and we pared it down, looked at the techniques, and basically formulated it like an experiment, and then reinserted the,
You start with the ending, though, do you?
Absolutely. That's always the way, isn't it? You start with the ending and work backwards.
So at some point, you guys thought, someone's going to push someone off a building.
Well, it's an easy thing to say. You start with the ending and work backwards. What you do usually is you start at the beginning, you work as far as you can get, and go, but shit, where's it going to?
Yeah,
and then you put all that on hold. You then look at, okay, so this is for argument's sake, the push. This is compliance. What are we going to do? Are we going to do X, Y, or Z? And for a little bit, it was always going to be someone pushing someone off something. It felt like a really great ending. It was going to be on a boat for a while.
Yeah, we liked the idea of setting it on a boat, like a party on a boat, and somebody pushing somebody into the river at the end, which is a nightmare to film in TV land. So that didn't become a thing.
So you work halfway, you get the ending, and then you basically then work backwards, meet it in the middle. Yeah. But then that pretty much pushes you back to the start.
Yeah.
But I think for all that, with everything we've ever done, there's always compromise from the channel, from what we can film, from how much footage you have that you can cut down. The push itself was, I think, 250 hours of footage that we had to turn into a...
Well, because you did it 4 times, that's what we saw.
4 times, 53 cameras, and so 250 hours of footage you have to turn into a 90-minute show. I mean, I'm very proud of it, I think.
Yeah, that was really nice. Great Art Robbery kind of was close, but we had to make a few compromises, but the push was lovely. We wrote the story, and the story we wrote is the one that ended up...
And do they bring you guys to the set? Are you there filming?
Always.
So you're sat in the production box?
They're there for the whole thing.
Do you sit in the edit?
Write it, we're in and out of the edit, so there for the whole thing. We write it, we're on set, making sure things work. I mean, the push, I was in with the actors for 2 weeks rehearsing with them and stuff like that. Derren was there for sort of a week. So we're hands-on with everything. I mean, some of my favourite times are with the actors, when you've created something that isn't just, because you can't rehearse people because you've got a real person at the centre of it, and also you're dealing with the psychological principle that you've got to be true to in all of that, so it doesn't just end up being cod. I think some of the best times of working with the actors and getting their heads around it and finding how you can subtly manipulate player agency, as it were. It's it's good fun. It's good fun.
The Magicians Podcast brought to you in association with the Magic Circle, the world's premier magical society. Are you ready to join the world's most exclusive magic club? Visit themagiccircle.co.uk to find out more.
Gigi-O, free for 30 days. Be a pro, get Gigi-O.
Gigi-O, my friends, will save you hours in the office every single week. It generates PDF contracts and invoices, it tracks your payments, it updates the diary on your phone automatically, and you can even schedule emails to be sent to your clients at certain times to speed up the administration process. All the top professionals are using it, and if you visit the website right now, gigio.co.uk, Gigi-O is spelled G-I-G-G-I-O, you can take a free 30-day trial. Visit the website right now and see what you have been missing out on.
Whether you're new to magic or a seasoned professional, Alakazam Magic are here to help. Alakazam have been supplying magic to magicians for well over 20 years. Not only do we carry all the latest and greatest magic tricks, books and DVDs, but we also manufacture one of the finest ranges of magic tricks in the world. The Alakazam name is synonymous with great customer service, educated advice and honesty. So if you're shopping for new magic, make sure you check out our website www.alakazam.co.uk or pay a visit to our fully stocked shop.
So, Stephen, let's talk about your magic book.
Oh yeah, go on.
And I've heard a rumour, because I'm a broadcast journalist, that there's a second one on its way. Is that true?
Sort of. It's sort of true. There's been a second one on the way for I don't know, like a couple of years now, and it exists in part on my computer, and I've been picking at it a bit recently. I hesitate to use the word writing it because I haven't actually sort of sat down and generated any new content, but I've visited some of the old stuff I've gotten and had a look at it, and I think it will exist at some point, but who knows?
You use a secret name.
Yeah,
Hector Chadwick.
It's not secret anymore.
Where did the name come from?
It came from a roommate's painting on her wall at university. It was just like splodges of paint, like handprints.
You shared a room with a girl?
No, I didn't mean roommate. That's the American term. I mean housemate, right? Housemate. So it came from a housemate had a painting on a wall in her room, which was shit. It was like splodges of paint, and it was horrendous. But it was by a 5-year-old, so that's fine. I give him that. But it said underneath by Hector Chadwick, and for some reason the name just stuck with me. I was like, that's a brilliant name, and that's it really. I remembered it, and then when I wrote my magic book, I thought, well, I'll just use that name.
So I mean, I was trying to give you a free plug for your book then, but you got no idea when it's coming out, or...
Oh yeah, no, there's nothing to plug, unfortunately. So
I've read it so far. It's really, really good.
Have you?
And well worth the £200 price will be attached to it.
300.
Produce 3 copies. That's the best we do. So we've got to talk. So Svengali we talked about already. Something I missed on it. Just to go back, you won a bloody Olivier award, as you said. What's that like, guys? Come on. Give it to us, that's
not as good as winning a BAFTA.
What a dick!
Yeah, I know, totally. You can cut that out.
Okay, that's staying in.
Keep it in, whatever you want to do.
It was great. I remember.
It was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was. I remember the night very clearly. It was Derren and the director. I think when there's an Olivier, I think they give out 2 tickets per nominee, which was Derren and the director. But we were there as well. They managed to get us tickets, but not in the main bit. We were kind of sort of sat at the side together, which was great. And I remember when they announced it, we leapt up out our seats and cheered.
Which is exactly what you want to do in a room of the high flying theatre types of London, who are very. Shall we say you don't want 2 louts wearing polite sunglasses going way. So that's what we did.
But it was that was great. That's absolutely one of the proudest moments of my life. I think when they announced
your
that.
careers to an extent. I mean, assume the industry knows that you've been involved in something from your careers as a writer. Has it opened up any other opportunities, or is it a bit like? I'm not going to say what I was about to say.
Do you know what I think? I think that nobody really cares. That's my experience of it. It's lovely to be recognised by the industry. Like, the thing that matters really is that people saw the show and liked it, and that it won an award is brilliant. Of course, it's brilliant, but nobody's like, I wonder who's won awards recently.
I remember getting told when we got it by a quite twatty TV producer at the time, you're hot. Now you've got that for the next 12 months, you're hot. And nothing changes. It's wonderful. It's a really proud moment, and it's a fantastic doorstop. I'm joking. No, and it's amazing. But nothing does really change, because if to get something like that, you're working already. Do you know what I mean? You're not trying to eke out a living. You are working. You're doing something of a profile, I think. So you're suddenly not going to stop working because you're on a trajectory and a momentum of your career. So I don't think anything really changed, did it? Apart from.
That's a good point. If you're working on stuff that is even nominated or considered in the realm of those kinds of award ceremonies, then you're sort of already doing it, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant to be nominated and amazing to win. But yeah, I feel like when we started working on Svengali, maybe even before then, we were we kind of had that great career already, and so yeah. So I wouldn't say that anybody noticed. We went into Objective the next morning or the morning after, and lots of people said well done, which was great. And then that was it, really, I think.
Yeah.
Got to talk about Killer Magic, otherwise Coxie will send me a text message.
Or a leotard.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about your involvement in that? What point did they bring you in? Were you there right from the start?
And that was sort of brains for hire, wasn't it? So you find that a lot of what we do, it ranges. We're either brains for hire, where you just come on for a day or two and throw trick ideas at it, and you have format points or whatever, and then other shows you write from the ground up.
So what about Killer Magic? So you said you're brains for hire on that. So how much were you involved in it?
It was minimal, right? We did a day sort of with everyone.
Oh no! We did a day first, where we just spunked out loads of trick ideas.
Yeah, which is sort of what we do.
Yeah. And then we had a day with Noel Qualter. The hilarious Noel Qualter.
Oh, that was great. Yeah, I remember that.
Sort of working them up a little bit, and then we sat there with all the magicians and said, "Look, here are some ideas, and this, and this," and then they sort of took those ideas, and then a few months later we saw them on screen.
They formed. I think that lots of our thoughts formed the backbone of the first episode. The pilot. Yeah, they changed a lot in ways that, like, when we see them and we're not aware of the practicalities of what they've had to deal with on set in the production arena, we kind of go, "Well, why have you changed that?"
Oh, don't! But there's one trick though that gets my goat up, right? And I'll talk about this, and I'm happy to talk about this. That damn Jazz Vegas trick where she cuts the Lego car out of her stomach, right? Now, I'm not being funny, right? The way that was written was so much better because they cut one key element out of that trick in my mind, right? So what you saw on screen was she eats loads of Lego and then goes, "Yeah, watch this." She cuts open her stomach and pulls out a car. Why? Why is that a car, I ask you? It makes no sense on screen. The way that was formulated was, originally it was going to be her saying something like, when I was a kid, I realised I could. I'm a risk taker. Even when I was a kid, like, I'd get a Kinder Egg, and you have a Kinder Egg. And she says, "Look, and I'd take all the component parts, and it says, choking hazard." So what I'd do, I'd put all the parts of the Kinder Egg in my mouth, and puts all in her mouth, and chews them, and then goes, "But look, I found I could do this," and then pulls out a fully formed toy from her mouth. Because of licensing agreements, they couldn't use a Kinder Egg. So that was the first phase, which is fine. Get rid of that. That doesn't matter. The bigger trick, though, was look, here's loads of Lego. I'm going to eat loads of it. And here's the key bit they cut out. Name anything. And the person says, "I don't know, a car." Okay, a car. Let me see what I can do. It palpates the stomach, whatever else. At least find a way of getting it out. Gets like a box cutter or a Stanley knife, cuts it out, and it's a car. So it's any item called for.
Right.
Which is a strong effect. But when you cut that key element out, what you see on screen is, "Eat loads of Lego. Look, a car." That's arbitrary, right? That doesn't make sense. There's no effect there. Am I right?
Yeah. So that's us. We're like that. We kind of we're very particular about the things we create. But then I think you have to be, right?
Yeah.
You're prepared to fight for stuff in a meeting like that.
Of course.
Yeah. That's why we're there. Absolutely. If we're in the room and somebody says, "What do you think of this?" and we don't agree, we'll say.
But it's a different creature, sort of. Designing tricks or giving tricks to a show, and they'll take them, versus sort of building a whole narrative up from the ground up, like the Derren shows at the moment, like the push we've already talked about and stuff like that. It's just a very different sort of discipline, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the thing you learn is, for all my "damn, they didn't ask, it wasn't any item called for," you just learn kind of not to be precious and kind of let it go.
That's so key, isn't it? And I think that if anybody needs advice, like I always feel like such a fraud saying this kind of thing, but if you're entering the world of telly, or if you ever have that prospect, I think that there is definitely the tendency for the performer or for a magician is to be very, very precious over material, and very, very like, no, this is the way it has to be, this is my trick, this is my routine, and I know it must be this way. But one of the key skills that you need to learn if you're going to have a good career as a magician in that world is to be flexible and to let certain aspects go, and to understand the limitations of what it means to work in TV and with a production company and a channel and stuff. There you go. Some unsolicited advice for whoever cares.
To take this sort of full circle, obviously we talked about Thorpe Park at the beginning. You're I believe you've been heavily involved with the new Derren Brown Ghost Train, which is they've just announced going to open at Thorpe Park. Come on, guys, give me an exclusive. Tell me something. I don't care about the NDAs.
Okay.
Gigio will cover it.
Okay, so
Take your passport, right?
huh?
Take your passport.
Take your passport.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's what Michael Vine said to my girlfriend when he met her. Literally, he met my girlfriend. The first thing he said was, "Oh, you're very nice. Have you got your passport?"
Wow,
Brilliant.
That's a Michael Vine impression, and we've already had an Andrew O'Connor impression.
Both in the
I've got a prediction here.
All we need
in an
now
envelope. So the Derren Brown ride, basically, have you got a sound problem there? And then it all ends up that you with a and then there's a photo on a keyring at the end.
They did me a treat there.
It's a 13-minute experience, which is massive for a theme park ride, and it involves virtual reality and live actors in something that's never been done before.
Oh, I can't wait.
It's going to blow your mind. It's going to blow
it?
your mind. I mean, we're not going to get to go on it until the night it opens. So, you know, we're just not going to get to experience it. But you know, hopefully the idea is sound and it might be good.
You know what you guys need to do that night when you're there? Derren will be in a good mood.
Take acid.
No, well, yeah.
Right.
Well, more importantly, if Derren takes that, this is what you need to do. Ask him if he'll be on the podcast. Because season 3, end of season 3. I'll be honest, at the minute, it looks like season finale this year.
You're going to keep this in, aren't you? You're going to keep in you begging us
The point is that
for an access to Derren.
if you
right?
don't, it looks like season finale this year is Harry de Cruz. Okay, so
Wow.
we need to get Derren on the show. You know, you guys
Right,
need to
okay.
maybe sort of mention it. That'd be good.
I don't know, Harry de Cruz, man. He's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
You know, like, I think if
He
you
gets all the bitches.
guys, he's out of control. That guy.
Gets all the bitches.
Have you got him on Snapchat?
No, and I've actively stayed away from it from what I
Get de
know
Cruz
about.
on Snapchat. Brilliant.
Right, yeah.
Absolutely brilliant.
Isn't it just bums and
Yes,
and
a lot
bits
of bums.
indescribable flesh?
And lots of Hilsum as well, which is
Right.
So this series is all about asking tough questions.
Yeah, right.
Got to
right,
ask you a
right,
tough
right.
question.
We haven't even talked about our view on magic as
We're getting to that.
as a
Don't
narrative
worry.
form and stuff. Yeah.
Don't worry, we're getting to this.
Right.
So this is a tough question. You weren't involved in Miracle. Does that annoy you?
Miracle.
Not at all.
The latest one. Well, we hadn't. There was a show before that which was infamous, which we weren't involved in. Like, I mean, yeah, it would have been lovely to have been involved. Like, of course, it would have been.
But do you know what?
But-
for me, it doesn't bother me at all because I think we're so busy sort of building up and looking after the TV stuff that there's the stage show going on at the same time, and I think you really can't do both at the moment with Derren's schedule. You know, he's one of the busiest people on the planet with the amount of stuff he's got going on, and I think no, that doesn't bother me at all. And I think what was nice for me with Infamous and Miracle was at least trying to watch him as a punter and try and remove yourself from it. You know, because I'd not seen a Derren live show since Something Wicked that I could watch as a punter because I was involved in some way with all of them. So yeah,
That's a good point. That is a lovely experience, which like it won't really mean anything to anybody else, but to us, who had been in between us involved in every single show bar the first one, up until Infamous, to get to go in to because we're Magic fans, like above and beyond anything else. We love it, and so we were both huge fans of Derren before we worked with him. So to get that experience again was fantastic. But yeah, I was really pissed off about not being involved.
Yeah. There's my intro right there.
It's a piece of shit, isn't it? You know what I mean? Good God, what does he think he's doing?
You mentioned that you're Magic fans. Let's talk about the world of Magic.
Yeah, please.
What do you love? What do you hate?
Tony Chang, man.
He's amazing.
Yeah. Right.
Are you big Steve Wyrick fans?
Don't know that name.
Don't know that name.
Jesus.
Should we know him?
Yeah, look him up. He's great. Yeah.
Oh, right,
Tony
right.
Chang, hero. Yeah, we saw him at the session, didn't we? Doing some
He was
amazing
there at the
stuff.
session.
You saw The Illusionists? Both saw it?
Yes.
West End?
Yes.
Did you enjoy the show?
Well, we didn't. I mean, the individual acts are great, but like as a piece of theatre as a whole, like, I don't think it really did it for either of us.
No,
Is that fair to say?
yeah,
I think you know.
I think so. You know, it's standalone, some great stuff, some great performers, some great things going on, but I just don't think it gelled properly. And I think
What about Impossible?
Well, I didn't see that.
Neither
so
did I.
Well, there we go then.
yeah, Antonio wouldn't give us free tickets. But yeah, I think with all of that, you know, I just think there's no real. There should be more of a look at the package as a holistic thing almost, you know, and with a bit of.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? We've never tried to write.
Everyone's a critic. Everyone's a critic.
Yeah, we've never
know.
tried to write a magic show that consists of different acts and tried to put them all together into one cohesive whole on a West End stage. You know, I've no doubt it's a very, very difficult job. So, like, I mean, who are we to judge? But you know, it's
difficult enough doing one act on a West End stage.
Yeah.
You know, and getting away with that. But who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
This is a little bit of a deeper question, but I think you guys are perfect to answer this. To explain to me the process you go through when you write a magic trick, because that's what you do best.
I think what the key word there is writing a magic trick.
Illusions, Richard.
Tricks are for whores. I think the key is writing a magic trick, because I mean my take is, I don't know, it's something you've said a few times, that the magic world is so preoccupied with tricks.
Well, yeah. Well, this kind of harks forward to a question that I think you're going to ask us at the end, because we've done our research and we think
on you, because we're broadcast journalists.
I don't know if you know that about us, but we're broadcast journalists, so we did a little bit of research on you.
Brilliant.
Which is, well, should we?
Well, we realise you're not very young to start with.
No, not there.
Yeah.
But hang on, maybe this could all tie back in. Did you want to ask the end question, which might tie back into this, or should we?
Let's proceed. So you said about how you write a magic trick, and I think the key word there is sort of writing, because you know, I'm not a magician. I first got into magic. I came to the party late. I was 23, and I was studying writing at the time. So I was studying writing and started studying magic. So I can only see them as analogous. You know that's when they both entered my head, and I sort of feel like what I was learning about writing and magic at the same time was one simple thing, and that's sort of, it's all about, both art forms are about the considered control of information to create a desired effect. If you write a mystery story or a whodunit, it's identical to writing a magic trick. The only difference is you have an immediate performer in front of you with a piece of magic, whereas you have a more vicarious, sort of distant performer from a writer. And I think that's the sort of key. It's sort of, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
You're sort of, and I think to look at magic as a standalone form or craft or whatever it is, I think is missing the point. When we create a trick or create a piece of magic, it's, you look at the fundamental piece first, which is the story. It's like the effect, and it's the same as writing. It's the effect. What do you want an audience to feel? Then the way you do it, you look at your building blocks, which are your sort of method and your accepted things that you can do in magic, and then you look for a way of almost hiding that, don't you?
Yeah.
By taking all these other things and sort of creating this whole. That does make sense what I'm talking about.
It does, yeah. It reminds me of this. So Sharkey made this observation recently about magic being quite self-referential, which is that a lot of magicians, when you see them perform, will only refer to the world of magic. So I remember the first trick I ever learned, and it was this. Or I've always been fascinated by Harry Houdini, who was this guy. And it feels like so little of it comes from outside the world of magic, which is where it's kind of really interesting.
I think my point was, you can tell a shit magician because all they will talk about is magic. do you know what I mean? They won't make it about the human condition or about anything wider that might resonate with an audience. They will talk about, when I was 6, my uncle showed me a magic trick. I don't give a toss about that. No one actually gives a toss about that. No one gives a toss about seeing Houdini in chains for the 500th time. The one thing people care about is themselves, you know. And I think magic as a storytelling form can do that. It can be about people and the people watching, and I think that's what Derren taps into, right?
Oh, absolutely, it's so true. It reminds me of, so I listened to the Danny Buckler episode of this podcast, which is one of my favourite episodes, and I think he's great. And one of the things that I loved that he said in that is he talks about, people telling him, people want to be fooled by a gentleman, to which his response is, people want to be fooled by a human being. And I think he goes on to say, I don't even know they want to be fooled at all in the first place. But it's so true, and I think that what I think is missing in magic, and this comes on to a question I think you're going to ask at the end, because we're broadcast journalists, we've done our research. Yeah. I don't feel like there's enough humans. I don't feel like I know these people as people or as performers. I feel like I know a lot of people as magicians, and I know their magic and their tricks very well, but I don't know what they love or what they hate or what they get excited about or what makes them upset.
Well, I think too much of magic goes back to the what he would have done formula. Here is a riverboat gambler from the 1920s, and what he would have done is he would have done this and read your facial cues or known what card you were going to pick. I don't care what he would have done back in the 1920s.
Yeah.
I care what you're doing now to me and what meaning that has to me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I get it.
And I think that's kind of what's interesting, because magic sort of turns in on itself.
Yeah.
And yet I think magic for me is only one part of a greater whole. It's really interesting.
I couldn't disagree less. Like we had.
You could disagree less.
I couldn't disagree less, or I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, right. Okay,
same
sure.
thing, yeah,
I thought you were getting really
So-
American, but you weren't. You were actually amazing.
So yeah, I mean, we've had this conversation about a separate project that we're sort of working on in the background, which is this notion of like, what defines a great stand-up comic or a great performer outside the world of magic. For example, Louis C.K. is regarded as one of the modern greats of stand-up, probably, right?
He's the comedian's comedian.
Yeah, right, like George Carlin was.
Yeah, I was going
before
to
him,
say
who's amazing.
He's our generation's George Carlin.
Can
right?
you imagine any of those guys saying,
Hey, there was a dude called Lenny Bruce in the 70s, and he had some great jokes.
yeah,
Here are some of them.
Yeah, here are
Right?
some of them.
Yeah.
And he would tell his joke like this. And let me tell you that joke now in much the same way that he would have told it 100 years ago. Like, they wouldn't say that because people don't really care about that. I mean, that's not to say there's not room for that in magic. Like, there is, like, the world of magic is inherently fascinating. And of course there's room for that kind of thing. And, like all the stuff about Erdnase, and not even magicians know who he was. All that stuff is amazing and interesting. It just feels like there's probably a bit too much of it.
And there's stuff that's not rightfully explored. I mean, there was a thing we talked to Maven recently, and he said something really smart.
Yeah, he said something about name dropping, didn't he?
We were talking to someone recently. Let me start that again. So we were talking to someone recently, and they said a really interesting thing about your goal as a magician when you first start out is to, if you ask someone, what do you want to do to your audience? I want to amaze them, and that's your end goal. And they sort of said to us that, well, it took me years to realise that's not the end goal. That's a given. I'm going to amaze them. So therefore, that's my starting point. Therefore, where do I take it? And I think
absolutely.
That's a really interesting...
We probably should credit that to Maven. So leave
Yeah.
in the bit at the beginning.
Yeah, right. If you can cut that together with about the name dropping as well,
Yeah, or with the name dropping bit. But it's such an important point, isn't it? Like you ask most magicians, like, why do you want to perform magic? Like, what do you hope to achieve with this amazing thing that you can do? And I feel like most people will say, because it's such an easy answer, I want to amaze people,
or I want to give them a childlike sense of wonder.
Yeah. But what happens if you flip that on its head? What happens if you start that? As we say, that's your starting point. You're a magician. Of course you're going to amaze people. That's what you do. That's like, what do you hope to do as a comedian? I hope to make people laugh. No, that's not. That's a starting point, isn't it? Like, what do you want to explore? Like, what can you do
comes
with
from
it?
writing, right? That comes from being aware of the very bedrock and the grounding of what you can do. Yeah, I mean, there's a thing like Rod Serling, the big fan of the Twilight Zone, and Rod Serling in the Twilight Zone, I think it was Rod Serling that said, if you're writing a story with a twist at the end, forget everything you've written to that point and make that twist your beginning, and then push on from there and find another one, because that makes a very inherently interesting and resonant story. And I think William Goldman, the script guru, said the same thing. If you're writing a 3-act structure, get rid of the first 2 acts and use Act 3 as your starting point. And it's almost the same kind of thing that, of course you're going to amaze people. Of course you are. So therefore, what if you look under the hood, what is the form? How can you explore magic? And I think that's the thing we're kind of lucky, because, especially with the Derren shows, because the Derren shows, like I said, aren't magic shows anymore. They're hybrids. We're writing them as movies, but with magic techniques. So you've got kind of misdirection and switches and a rug pull at the end and stuff like that. But we're able to look at kind of writing and storycraft around it. And I think that's completely transferable to sort of small, even close-up tricks. I just think it's about looking under the hood and looking what's possible, rather than what's out there and sticking to that rigidly,
Yeah.
Give me a Derren anecdote.
Derren, so writing, one great one was writing The Great Art Robbery. And that was, the method for that wasn't, well, the story for that wasn't originally what we planned, was it? we were going to steal a single painting. I don't know if you remember, we stole 2 paintings.
With pensioners.
Yeah, with pensioners. Yeah. I mean, that was the same day we came up with the idea for Apocalypse. We came up with 2 ideas. One was the end of the world, and the other one was old people. Do you remember?
On a lunch break.
On a lunch break.
On the way to Marks and Spencer's to get a sandwich.
You guys have done so much. You didn't even talk about
Yeah, it was like
Apocalypse.
Pixar. It was like Pixar. There's a great. We've got a great thing about Apocalypse as well. But so the old people one was Great Art Robbery was originally called Ocean's 111, and it was going to be them fleecing a casino. But for whatever, over the year, it changed and became the Great Art Robbery. But we were originally going to steal 1 painting, and so Stephen and I sat in a room trying to work out how we were going to do this mechanically, and we took Card Under Box as our sort of trick that we were going to try and blow up.
Yeah, loosely.
Yeah. And we were playing with the Card Under Box thing. Okay, if there's someone
That's
under,
a clever idea, using that.
right? Well, it's even in the show.
That's where it came from. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're playing with Card Under Box, saying, okay, so if we do this, and there's all these kinds of, and we had, there's some other cards on the table that represented the paintings, and there's someone under there, and this goes under there, and this is good, and no matter how many times we tried it, we always ended up with a spare card, and we could not work out for the life of us. Let's start again. Let's do this again. Spare card. Let's start again. Let's do this again. Spare card. And it took us, I think, half a day to suddenly go, hang on. This just means we steal 2 paintings. Oh, so it was one of those happy little accidents that we couldn't quite work out the trick to steal 1 painting. So the fuck up became steal 2, which inherently made the show a lot grander. And
yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
Realisation of this extra card. You know what that means?
Yeah,
it means we've got out with a painting already.
yeah. Which was
Let's do word association quickly, shall we?
Yeah, great.
We'll just switch between you.
Well, just whoever answers.
Yeah. So, Derren Brown.
An egg.
Go on, you can answer.
I'm just sort of a bit too preoccupied with Sharky's answer of an egg.
No, I have a reason. I get asked so many times over the years. So what's he like? Has he ever tried anything on you? What's he like? So we try to develop this very mysterious stock answer, which is, listen, if everyone you've ever met is a vegetable, Derren Brown's an egg. And I give him a little wink, and it always gets the same reaction, which is, wow. Oh, wow, that's crazy. And they just that's it. They just leave it. It's So
he's a great, isn't he? I think he's a great, and I think that there's a lot. That people talk about it, and there's so much work that eventually the Magic community, if first it embraced him and then it turned on him, I feel like there was a bit of that at one point.
Turned on him and it shaved his head and his beard off and left him for dead, and then he comes back and heals him.
But I think whatever else you think of him, he will just go down as a great,
the great. I think
the great.
I really think so. I think he's a legend. Yeah.
What do you guys think is the biggest problem with Magic today, and how can it be fixed?
See, as broadcast journalists, we thought you might answer this.
Cloning. I think yes, and indeed, it's the way we all learn.
I didn't realise it was a genuine answer. I thought it was like saying an egg again.
No. This is genuine. I think yes, and indeed, it's the way we all learn to. When we first start out, but I think
you mean everybody copying Derren Brown,
copying Derren Brown, or copying Blaine, or whoever else, or
Steve Wyrick.
Yeah, absolutely, or Noel Coulter. I see loads of them. You go down Covent Garden at the moment, and they're all there. But I just think there's a point at a time. It's all good to learn to a point, but I think there has to become a moment where you go, okay, what's it about for me now, and what is that, and you go to a lot of conventions and you see the same thing again and again and again. I think for me that's the one thing I would sort of want to shout from the rooftops of just, Jesus, be yourself. It's fine to copy to a point, but you've got to leave it behind a little bit. Yeah.
This is all. These are all so allied. These kind of things that
I've got to say, we're not looking down on any form of magic or the magic community here, because we all fall prey to this. This is the playing field we're all on together. So
as well, we have this conversation where we feel like frauds. Like, we don't do it. With the gigging magicians, the people out there earning their money, performing this stuff, they're doing it.
You ever done gigs? They're awful. You never done them?
Yeah, a few in my time.
Yeah.
But
we're the lucky guys that get to sit in a room and go, wouldn't it be cool if?
That's tough. And that's all we're doing here. I mean, any magicians listening to this thinking, fuck you, what do you know? You're quite right. But this is just us kind of looking at it a step removed, I suppose, and saying, well, it can be more. And my answer to that question is, I feel like the magic community as a whole is a little bit too preoccupied with tricks, and I think that that's a byproduct of magic, the industry, which is built on the trade of tricks. You know, someone puts a trick out, you buy it, you hear it's good, and that's great. And
there's two worlds, isn't there, in magic? There's two worlds, and I don't think the twain regularly meet, if that's a phrase.
It is now.
Yeah, right. And one world is people and performers who are creators and creating stuff originally, and the other world is the magic world of business, of selling tricks and selling tricks and selling
I thought
tricks.
you were going to say people on Gigio, people not on Gigio.
Oh, no, we're all on Gigio.
Of course.
Well,
We're all on Gigio.
Anyone who's a pro is on Gigio.
Yeah.
Anybody
Yeah,
who's
right.
30 days, a week to lose.
Yeah,
We don't
exactly.
need free 30 days. We're all over this shit. You know, as everyone listening should be.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
But the thing is, right, you're right, and that's the thing, which is my point, which is there's magic the industry, which I feel has conditioned us to be a bit more preoccupied with tricks than probably we should be. And then there's magic the thing, which is performance, which is what it is, I think, is it's a performance. And I think that it's fine to love tricks. We all love tricks. I love tricks, you know, but there's
methods.
and we love methods,
Yeah,
and all that
of
stuff
course
is
we
great. I
do.
get so excited about a good trick or a juicy bit of method, like anybody. But I think there's just a danger that we are so conditioned by magic the industry and so preoccupied with tricks that we lose sight a little bit of what magic the thing is, which is about you and about your performance and
about the story of it and what it can be. Yeah, right.
Amazing.
So that's what we think.
I think the other thing as well, and I know we're going to get kicked out in a minute, but we're going to push you for as long as you can possibly go, because I can see you getting antsy now. And
I'm just aware of the Dorman's a big guy.
I'm seeing you getting antsy, and I'm enjoying this even more. I think one of the other problems with magic, like as a whole, is clarity of effect, and I really feel this. You see a lot of magicians that feel like because they can do something, they should do something, which is a case of, you get it a lot in mentalism, which is, I've got a prediction effect, but because I can sort of read or claim to read from you what you're going to write down, I'm going to do that. I'm going to put on all the effort. So I'm watching an effect where it's someone reading something, great, and they've got it and they've nailed it, and this is amazing, and that's in whatever way, maybe body language or sniffing their farts or whatever, you've just worked out how it's done. But then all of a sudden there's another thing, which is, and I've also predicted it, and I've also done this, and it just feels like you get it a lot in classic magic as well. It's a card trick that suddenly ends up in a block of ice, that suddenly ends up in someone's pants, that suddenly ends up being some maths thing, and it just feels like if everyone just took a little step back in the creation process and just understood their powers in the moment. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Understand their powers. I think that would be an amazing thing as well. I think clarity,
all goes back
of
to
tricks.
Vernon, doesn't it?
Of course it does.
What's the sentence? What is it? Describe the trick in a sentence.
Clarity, right?
Guys, you need your own podcast.
Clarity, which
It's been great fun.
Clarity, which we've given you none of. This
is going to be a tough edit.
Good luck with editing it.
Thanks very much for doing this, guys.
No
Thanks for
worries.
having us.
Cheers.
No worries.
That was the wonderful Sharkey and Long. Sincere thanks to Mark Kirstein, who helped me with the preparation for that interview. Don't forget, this is a double bill week, so episode 60 with Bruce Smith is now available on the feed for you to enjoy. If you're going there, I will see you there in a few seconds. If you're not, then I will see you soon after our mid-season break. Take care. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.